Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining us for our workshop today on Taguette for qualitative analysis. Vicky Rampin from NYU Libraries will be our speaker, and I will introduce them in just a moment. I'm Olivia Given-Castello from Haverford College Libraries in the US, and before we get started, I just have some housekeeping and background information. I'll try to keep it short. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on YouTube on the iAssist YouTube channel playlist for this series. We are in meeting format, and there are many attendees, so we just ask that you remain muted when you're not speaking. Please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A feature and engage in the chat. Closed captioning is available, and like the Q&A feature icon that can be found in your Zoom toolbar. Right. So we are iAssist, the International Association for Social Science Information Service and Technology. Our organization is nonprofit and brings together colleagues from around the globe, from academia, government, libraries, repositories, and other social science information and data contexts. Membership is very reasonably priced, and reduced rates are also available. And this membership gives you access to a community of truly great people and a very helpful discussion list. And I'm constantly astounded by the expertise and altruism that I see demonstrated on this list. So I highly recommend joining. And I'm just going to paste a link to join iAssist in the chat as well. iAssist is 50 years young. We are celebrating this year at our annual conference in lovely Bristol, UK. Registration for that is now open, and we're getting nautical again this year. We'll be bridging oceans, harboring data, and anchoring the future. And it's going to be what? The best iAssist ever, of course. So thank you for a link was pasted into the chat to register for that. Today's workshop is part of our multi-part series on technologies for qualitative research. iAssist Qualitative Social Science and Humanities Data Interest Group, or QUISHDIG, and our Professional Development Committee have collaborated to plan this multi-part series for researchers and those who consult with qualitative researchers. Our first workshop in this series on appropriate uses of AI for qualitative analysis took place last month, and that's available on the iAssist YouTube channel. Links to register for upcoming workshops are also on the iAssist website, and the workshops are free and open to all. Here in the chat is a link for that. Okay, so now without further ado, I would like to introduce Vicky. Vicky is the librarian for research data management and reproducibility and the subject specialist for data science and computer science at New York University. Vicky supports researchers in creating well-managed reproducible scholarship and also contributes to a number of open projects such as Taguette. And I'll just stop my slide share, and Vicky, you're welcome to start a share.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really delighted to come talk to you all about Taguette today. Taguette is a passion project. So here's a little bit about me. Everything there was said. But Taguette is my nights and weekends project with my husband, Remy, who is the main developer. He got really sick of me complaining about the cost of access to what is commonly referred to as CAQDAS, or computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software. There's not that many free and open source options. Perpetual access to qualitative software is very expensive, and even those that are on a monthly subscription, depending on the needs of your team, can either be as low as like 13 a month for Deduce or as high as 357 a month for Atlas, and I just looked at those prices today. So yeah, I complained a lot because I just wanted to highlight text and query it. And I just wanted a free tool to do that. And so Remy said, what do you actually need? And Taguette was born. Why does contributing to free and open source matter in this context? Well, we really care deeply that researchers without access to funding have access to a CAQDAS. We want to be able to facilitate research across many different fields and locations. We also want to help people avoid lock-in, having to take the software with you, or having files that are locked into a software can make it really hard when people change jobs, change universities, graduate, things like that. Open projects also tend to support interoperability. For instance, Taguette is SQLite, and SQLite you can use with anything. So very open and interoperable. And it prioritizes the community. We have a really active community. They tell us what they want all the time, and we do our best to prioritize based on that. So it's all about hearing directly from people. So Taguette is like baguette, but with a T. My husband's French. We made fun of him. That's the reason the name is the way it is. We feed your qualitative needs. I love the logo we made about 6 years ago now, a baguette that highlights for you. It is purely text tagging. So it's just about uploading some text, highlighting it, and applying a tag. That's it. The development is all openly done on GitLab, so you can see everything that we're doing transparently. Remy also runs a hosted version of Taguette that people can use at app.taguette.org. It's not meant for sensitive data. We tell people, treat us like random people on the internet, just put non-sensitive data in there, but it is useful if people want to collaborate. So as I mentioned, Taguette was built with Python, SQLite, and this thing called Calibri, which is actually an ebook manager. We use that to convert materials. All the data is stored on a SQLite database wherever the software is. So it's also it's as secure as where you installed it. So all the data is stored completely locally. If you, for instance, you install Taguette on your computer, it's all there. Taguette works the same on every operating system, which we know is not the case for all qualitative tools, but it is for Taguette. Whether you install it on Mac or use the web-hosted version, it will look and act the same. It facilitates real-time collaboration if you use it in a hosted version. So you can actually have real-time collaboration with people in the platform. It is simple by design. So you upload text, you highlight it, and then there's a few extra things you can do. It's self-hostable, as I said. The data remains local. And also, thanks to wonderful volunteers who have translated Taguette, we can offer it in multiple different languages. So that was wonderful community effort again. So we have a website with install instructions. If you would like to use Taguette on your personal computer, there's installers available for Windows and Mac. You will have to do a few special steps. For instance, we're not a member of the Apple Store because we don't have any Apple hardware. We don't have a Mac computer. We don't have an iPhone. We're just kind of locked out of that Apple Store ecosystem. But you can still run Taguette on Mac. You just have an extra step. So really read the install guides if Taguette isn't working for you. There is that one-time extra step you have to do to get it to run. But once you install Taguette, it just appears like a regular program in your start menu or in your launchpad on your computer. Now, I also want to make the caveat, if you are working at an institution that has an IT unit, you should definitely ask them to self-host Taguette for you. It's really particularly useful if you want secure, collaborative, qualitative data analysis. There's a non-exhaustive list of examples of people who are self-hosting Taguette for their own researchers. We've also got a number of emails of people whose websites aren't public who are hosting it for themselves. But it's if you're interested in offering Taguette as a service, I would really recommend sending the self-hosting guide to your IT unit or host it on a server of your own. It's really good thing to offer, again, particularly for security. So there are some features that are only available when using Taguette that is on a server like that. One is adding collaborators. So you can't collaborate on Taguette if you're using it like you installed it on your local computer and you are using it that way. Also, Taguette on the desktop will just switch languages depending on what language your desktop is in. Taguette on the server, there's a button for switching languages, which you can see on the left there. So those are the only differences. And the major functionality difference is the collaboration part. So I am going to start up Taguette and sort of walk through the A to Z of how to import a document, tag it, make some useful exports, do some useful functionality, and then see what we can do with that. You are welcome to follow along with me if you have Taguette installed or if you have an account on app.taguette, but you definitely don't have to. I have this slideshow with all of the screenshots, which I can also make available or will be available for everybody. But when you start up Taguette on your local computer, this is what it looks like. You'll see it's called single user mode. And you'll see that in the browser, it says localhost. So that means that I'm running Taguette on my computer. This is not the collaborative version of Taguette. It's a nice way to test it out for yourself, though, and you can always export a project from the desktop version and import it into a server version seamlessly. So let's create a new project in Taguette, which is how we get started. Call it 2025 iAssist. I always like to give it a description. I'm a data management librarian in my day job, so I always have to interject with some data management practices. Whenever there's a description field in Taguette, you should fill it out because it's available in all the exports. And again, just makes the exports a little more useful for you. Examining, let's say, iAssisters' attitudes towards CAQDAS, our beautiful fake project. When you're brought into Taguette, the screen is divided into this left and this right side. So on the left side over here is where you're going to do things like upload a document, but it's also where you can edit and find all the information about your project, and where you can also manage your tags and see all the text that you've highlighted. So let's start by uploading a document and tagging. Taguette ships with this one called interesting by default, but we don't have to use it. We can always make our own. Taguette can also handle a very wide range of formats. Basically, whatever Calibri can handle, Taguette can handle, because that's what we're using for our conversion. And all of the formats and the links to Calibri's import formats are on our website as well. But for this, I'm going to download my own paper. If you don't give your document a name, the file name is just going to be used, but I'm going to call it IDCC scholarly code. You could also call it like a participant alias. You can note if the document language is going to be right to left or left to right. Taguette does have support for right to left languages for tagging. The interface itself cannot be made right to left right now, but your documents can render that way. We'll give it an interview with an iAssist member who's been involved for 50 years. I don't know if anyone's actually been involved since the start, but that would be cool. So when you import it, what this is going to do is it's going to convert your document into HTML. And you can see when you click it, it's rendering here. So this is all the text that you're now going to be able to highlight and view. Let me check on the chat. I can help troubleshoot after, sorry. So once you have a document in Taguette, you can always edit the name and the description with this edit button to the right of the name. But then once you have a document, you can just start immediately doing your qualitative analysis. So if you're working inductively, you can read through. Let's say this is a really interesting part for you. So all I'm doing is I'm left clicking and dragging over the text I want to highlight in order to create a highlight. I would then click that button that appears that says new highlight. So you can see I can use a tag that's already exists, or I can create a new one. So I can say something like, yeah, you can see all my old ones. Childhood trauma. If they're talking about their childhood trauma, we can say, and it is particularly important to add a description when you're creating a new tag in Taguette, because when you export your code book, that will be included. Again, just makes your life easier. Description of participants' trauma from childhood. When you click save and close, it's going to be auto-selected. You have to hit save and close again, and then you'll see we have our very first highlight. If you hover over it, it will show you in a little pop-up there the tag that's applied to it, which is really nice. Then also, if we go over to highlights, you'll see there's childhood trauma. And if I click into it, there's the text we just highlighted. So you'll notice that all of the navigation is in the left side. So I can get to my documents that way. I can get to my highlights that way. And all of the text and all of the display is going to be rendered on the right side of the screen. You can double tag the same highlighted text. So let me go back to the document. If I click on the highlighted text anywhere, I can then just apply the same tag, save and close. And if I hover over it, you'll see that both are there in the modal. I'll go back to my slideshow for just one thing on tags. You can see everything is documented here for you. One issue that we've had in the past that's ongoing with Taguette, there's a few known issues when you're importing a document. If you have a 2-column document, oftentimes the text does get jumbled up between lines. So you would need to convert those type of documents to 1 column. If your PDF is not like searchable, if it's not OCR'd, if it's like a scan and you can't Control F and find keywords, then chances are when you import it into Taguette, it will be treated as an image and will be left blank, because Taguette only supports text. It does not support images. So if there's images in a PDF, they'll be skipped. So you will need to OCR these before importing them into Taguette. There's many online tools to do this. It hasn't been a major blocker for anyone. We're working on it. It's just because of the way that Calibri does the importing, honestly. So we're working on it. We know that these pain points exist, but there are some workarounds that you can do before you import into Taguette to make sure you have a good structure for your coding. Oops. And I also wanted to make a note on hierarchical tagging. This is a question that I get a lot about Taguette. Does Taguette support hierarchical coding? Yes, it does, but it doesn't look like a tree. So it's kind of hard to visually see which is the parent and which is the child. In Taguette, when you make a tag, any space or punctuation after a word makes a child. So if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see there's like parent, parent-child, parent-child-grandchild. When you look at it in Taguette, it's flat. However, in actuality, it's nested. And I can show how this works right now as well. But just, yeah, FYI, you can do hierarchical coding. It's based on space or punctuation. and it is a little tricky visually. Another thing that we're working on that we've heard from people about. So if I go back to Taguette and I look at all my tags, let's say that I want to make the category interesting more specific. I can just create a tag if I know I want to do this. So I'll say something like interesting dash job. Something that stood out about the participant's job, and save and close. So let's say I highlight this text and I apply it only interesting.job. Now in my highlights, if I select interesting.job, I will only see that text. However, if I select interesting, you'll notice it also includes this interesting.job. And that's because the coding is hierarchical, even if it's displayed as flat. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to take a peek at the chat.
Vicky,
Yep.
this is Olivia. I installed Taguette, and on a Mac, there's one little tweak to your installation instructions, which is at least on the latest MacBook Pro. The pop-up about malicious software doesn't let you open it right from the pop-up. But if I go into my control panel security settings, there'll be a little open anyway button on a message about recently trying to open Taguette. And once I click that, then I am able to launch it at localhost. So it looks like the latest versions of Mac have a little bit different error screen than is shown in the documentation.
Okay, thanks. I'll definitely update that.
I'm not sure if the person who commented in the chat is on a Mac, but at least that was a similar, one similar scenario to what they commented about.
Good. Well, we'll see if that helps. Looks like some of the other stuff in the there I answered, which is good. All right, let me double check myself and make sure I go through everything. Oh, so let's see. We've shown how to add a tag in here, and I've also shown you how to add a tag while you're coding. You can also import a codebook. So let's say you have an established codebook for your project that you want to put in Taguette. It does require some specific formatting to be put into Taguette. So there's needs to be one column that's called tag name or path, either one of those names, and then another column called description. So I can show this real quick. I should have saved that. So you have one called tag, one called description. Say like, let's say floss, free and open source technology, floss dot tool, specific tool mentioned, I don't know. To import this into Taguette as a code book, you would first change this to text.csv. Let's call it something like codebook. Save it as a text.csv. Then when you go to Taguette in the project information tab, there's this import codebook button. When you hit browse, and you don't have to replicate this, sorry, this can be just a demo. When you select that codebook, you can import this. Existing tags will not be deleted, only the new tags will be added alongside them. You can also choose to like import one and not the other. And when I create tags, here it is. And I haven't tagged anything with it yet. So you can create a tag directly in the interface of Taguette, or you can import a codebook as a CSV file. So those are the two ways that you can add to Taguette. Add tags to Taguette. So then you just do your work. As I said, you go through, you highlight, make some more highlights so we can have some interesting data at the end. A feature that everyone loves that I think is kind of random is this feature called backlight over here. You might have noticed it. It's in the Documents tab. What this will do is just another way to view your document. And when you select backlight, it will just gray out all the text that is not highlighted. So it's just a way to make your highlighted text really vibrantly display while you are working. So you can always just deselect it. It doesn't matter. It's just a very like a helpful visual for you um, while you're working inside of a document.
Vicky,
Yep.
I don't know if this question has been answered. Someone asked if you can tag twice or more multiple times for the same highlighted text. I think that's the very first question. Let me go back.
Yeah, yes, I did answer that, but I'll show it again. So yeah, you can
And
either do it
also
when
the
you,
current question is, can you use different highlight colors?
no, there's no different highlight colors right now. It has been requested a lot of times, and we're working on the best way to incorporate color without ruining the interface. Because like, let's say you have 5 tags on a highlight. You don't want necessarily like 5 colors on a page like this. So we're kind of specking out the best, most user-friendly way to do color right now. You can just add a tag whenever you want, either by editing an existing highlight or when you create a new highlight, you can just select them there. So that's definitely possible. So let's look at some different ways to see highlights. So I already showed you that you can have parent and children, and you will see them come up differently. You can also see everything by clicking See All Highlights, and that will just show you all the text that's been highlighted. The document that it comes from will have a blue badge here. The tag will have a black one. If you click that, it'll just bring you to the document, not necessarily the spot where that quote is, but just back to the original document. That's something else that we are making more specific soon. So that's another way you can view data in Taguette. These badges here are the number of highlights. So you can see there's been 1, 2, 3, 4 things tagged as interesting, 2 things tagged as interesting.job. It's just a count of that. You'll notice too, so because we navigate with the left and then we do things in the right pane, the right pane always has this drop down for exporting a view. So this will always be the same button, just the drop down will change depending on what you're looking at. So you can export a document. So let's say I want to export this highlighted document as a PDF because I want to send it to someone or view it differently. So this is what it looks like when I export it. You can see my highlights are there as well as in brackets next to it, the tags that I applied. So that's one way you can export just the tagged documents. Now this view is going to be the same for everything. So let's say you want to export all the highlights. You notice this dropdown has not gone away. It's still there. So it just looks a little different because there's more options for exporting highlights than there are for exporting documents, right? Like we don't need this document as a CSV. We just need it as a few editable formats and one fancy looking format. So this export view button is going to stay the same again everywhere, no matter what I'm selecting. Just the options will be different if it's a document or if it's a highlight. If you upload a highlighted document to Taguette, is there a way to use that backlight feature, then to use highlights, then tag them? I have not tried that, but we can try it right now since I just exported that. Let's call this highlighted. Import. Good question. let's see. It appears the highlights don't stay. Well, that's something interesting. I don't know how we would detect it from the document right now, but that's something I could talk to Remy about. It's a really good question and workflow question. Right. So again, let me see. So I'm not double checking myself. Oh yeah, merging tags. That's a good thing to show. So let's say that interesting.job and interesting are not that different. Or let's say you want to merge together floss and childhood trauma, which wouldn't really work in the real world, but whatever. When you go to highlights, you'll see all your tags. When you click this edit button, you can always edit the description and edit the name. You can also then click that merge button, and you can select which tag you want to merge floss into. So let's say I want to merge everything I've highlighted as floss into interesting. I click merge tags. Now when I do that, you'll notice I have another, oops, let me refresh. And those tags have become merged. Can you upload a CSV file that has text fields for tagging? I don't believe Calibri has CSV import, but I can double check that for you. I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but that's a good question. It's like the text of a survey, right? I'll double check that. That's a really good question. Let me see, we've gone over that. Great. So let's go over some of those exports. So you can export everything in Taguette in multiple different ways, like I've shown a few times. You can export your code book, so all of your tags and their descriptions. There's lots of different formats for that. I'll just draw your attention to this QDC format. So if you export your codebook as QDC, you can then import it directly into other qualitative software. It is the standard transfer format for codebooks between qualitative tools. There's also Excel, CSV, and of course documents. So if I exported it as a doc, just so we can take a look. Oops, I will do that. Oops, sorry, just let me find this doc. Here we go. You'll see it has interesting. This is the description, and this is the number of highlights. So that's what one of the ways to export the code books looks like. Again, you can do it for any of those. You can export the whole project, which I'll show a little later. I already showed you the way you can export the document. You highlight the document and click one of those options. For highlights, you can export, let's say, just the interesting ones. And you can do that as CSV, Excel, doc, PDF. And this is where you can take your analysis to sort of the next step. So Taguette, again, is just for uploading text and highlighting it. That's it. However, we give you exports in all of these formats so that you can do other things with what your materials. So if we export, let's do all of our highlights as Excel, we can then take that Excel file and do other things with it. So let me look at the chat before I move on. Okay, thanks. So CSV is not possible. And yeah, it's just whatever Calibri's list is. Splitting document per row. Okay. Yeah, some great ideas for how to do survey. Can I get a copy of the chat after this so I can get all of this?
Yes,
To
absolutely.
get it to Remy? Okay, perfect. So, all right, so I've exported it as Excel. Here's what it looks like. You'll notice that some IDs are the same. Like these two are ID 9. That's because the ID refers to the text. So I've coded the same text with two different tags, which means it's going to share an ID. So the way to uniquely identify, let's say, is by the ID and the tag. But we can take this type of an export and do a lot with it. So much like a cooking show, I have one that's already pre-baked. Here is an export from a previous project. You can see here again, I have lots of aliases. I added this interview status column because that's something I'm interested in. So because you've gotten the exports as CSV files, I've just uploaded it into Google because that's what NYU has access to. This same thing would work in Excel or whatever tool you want to use. You can add columns to this that make sense for your analysis. So because this particular project, each document is one person, I can do like case classifications via my columns. You can add any attributes you would like about it's just going to be about either the document or the specific content. And that's something you can just work out in your work. So again, you'll have duplicate IDs because you will have coded the same text with multiple tags. That's always going to be in the export. One thing that I was really interested in is like, once you have this, what are some ways to get like interesting counts of things or interesting charts of things? And a lot of these tools come with it baked in. So if we highlight our materials, we can do things like make a pivot table. Shout out Jess Hagman. I know she does this in her workshops too. It's a great idea. So if you click pivot table, what this is going to let you do, and you always want to click new sheet, is it's going to let you do some counts in a table-like format that will be interesting. So I'll show you my pre-baked one, again, cooking show style, but I'll go back and show you how I made it too in this one. So in this pivot table, I've looked at, ooh, didn't capture all of my things. All right, sorry. I had that by status, which is what I want to show. So here I am in my new pivot table interface. I want each row to be an instance of a tag because I want to see how I've tagged things across different statuses of interviewees. So like, how did that play out? So by making the rows the tag, making the columns the status, the value is going to be the tag, and it's going to be a count. So what I'm going to get in this table is a count of each tag by affiliate status. And these are the types of things that you can do with the Taguette exports that we are not going to add in the Taguette interface that might be interesting for you. And these are just things you can kind of do with built-in tools available. Yeah, everyone loves a good pivot. And you can do it with lots of things. It doesn't have to be count all. You can do like the averages, like make it work for you. You can also use different parts of the export to do this. So this just happens to be all the highlights. Like, I don't know what you would want to do for specific highlights, et cetera, et cetera. Feel free to liberally add columns to your exports too, I would say. So it doesn't have to just be status. It could be like, what else is interesting about a participant? Interviewee, I don't know, modality, like how you interviewed them, in case that makes a difference. So this person who's 000 might be all on Zoom, whereas this person 001 might be in person. Like maybe that's something that's interesting for you to like capture and see if that is impacted your reading of their words, because some things might come across differently on Zoom than in person. And in this particular project, we did try to look at the emotion behind some of what our participants were saying. If you double click on the cell with a value, it will show you the data in a new sheet. Ooh. In a pivot table? Let's see, now my computer's getting a little slow, so let me close some of these other things. Convert to table. Well, there's something there. Yeah. Wow. So one example of something you can do with a Taguette CSV export. And I've put all of that in here as well. So you should be able to see that. The other thing I wanted to show, let me close all that extra tab, is what to do with a project export. So when you export a project from Taguette, it will have the date of the export, as well as, where is it? The name. That just happens to be my one from earlier, but here's my one from right now. So SQLite is a very fun format. You can use it with basically anything. For instance, something I like to do is open up my Taguette project data in this tool called DB Browser. And DB Browser is literally just a way to view all the data in your Taguette project export. So you can see I just click open, I click the database, and here I am. Here are all the documents. They tell you if it's left to right. And the funnest part is you can query it, right? If you know a little SQL. And again, this is a little more advanced, but it's something that you can do with your project export, and something that is there's a GUI available to do it. So for instance, if I want a count of documents by their direction, all of my documents happen to be left to right, but you might have other ones. That's like an example of something I could query here. Something else that I thought might be interesting to show is looking at the history of a project, because something that Taguette gives you is also, this was a single user project, so it looks like admin, but if this was on a server, it looked different. It tells you exactly what happened when. So in this case, I added a document. So you can see type document add. So it's a history of everything you've done in the project in this commands table. So I was interested to see like what's the timeline of doing all that for this particular project. So I said, like, give me the date and count how many actions per date. And we did most of this work on apparently October 13th, which is really funny. DB Browser also has a very cute little plotting function. It doesn't look that good for this date because there's one random action that I took in 2023 that threw things off. But just to say, because we have exports in very open, interoperable formats, you can do a lot with them. You can do it in Google Sheets or Excel, or you can put the whole thing into like a database software and do that too. So there's lots of different ways that you can work with your Taguette exports. Let me take a look at the chat because it's popping off a tad. Great. Yeah, Qualcoder is great. The REFIQDA standard is not super friendly to work with because it relies on Microsoft Word as the internal document standard, and because we are in a mostly open environment, I'm not sure how Colin from Qualcoder would do that. So looking at that would be good. Qualcoder is more of a direct, like in vivo alternative. It has, or like MaxQDA Atlas, it has a lot more added functionality. It has built-in case classification, built-in memo. It has support for AV. Qualcoder is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It has a different design and purpose than Taguette. Oh yeah, and there's going to be a workshop on that. I highly recommend you check that out too. They definitely work together too. Like you can start your work in Taguette and then use these exports with Qualcoder as well. Like using one doesn't stop you from the other. They work great together, and that's the open ecosystem. The other thing you can do is export a project and then import it somewhere else. So now I'm on app.taguette.org. And I'm going to import the project I just made on my local computer here. This is useful, for instance, if you've coded something and now you're ready to work with somebody else, you can upload it to the server. Here it is. Here's iAssist from today. I have one project I'm importing. And now everything has shown up here. And the same project that I have on my single user mode, I have now just uploaded and imported into my app.taguette. And then I can add a collaborator. Like, oh, I hope that's Remy's. Yeah, I actually have no idea what his Taguette username is. Let's try Shira. Dang it, I don't know anyone's username. Anyway, if you had someone's username, you would be able to add them to that project in that manage collaborators now. So that's another way to use the exported project, is to import it into a different Taguette. You can also send that SQLite file to somebody and they can open it on their own computer and their own Taguette in their own single user mode, and it would work for them as well. So, oh yeah, the last thing is deleting a project, which I'll delete this one. It's permanent, so be very, very careful. When you click delete a project, we warn you, you have one document, it has 5 highlights and 3 tags. There is no way to undo. Unless you have all your exports and you can re-import, there is no way to get this data back. So once you hit delete forever, it's gone forever. Lucky for me, I have my export, but regardless, yeah, that project has been deleted. Oh, have you thought about using DuckDB? So I will also say Taguette works with any database that you want. Doesn't have to be SQLite, that's just the default. We provide instructions for switching database systems. A lot of people do Postgres. Yeah, a lot of people changed. SQLite's just the default. So that is in our Taguette guide on how to do that. So you could probably use DuckDB. It's probably doable. So,
Vicky,
in,
there was
yeah,
one question in the Q&A. It is, can people collaborate in real time on a Taguette project?
yes, they can. So if I was highlighting this with somebody and let's say my collaborator was like making a highlight on here, it would show for me as soon as they hit save and close. So, but you don't necessarily see their like mouse cursor. So if I was to highlight the same text at the same time as them, you could possibly overwrite them. That's also something we're working on, but it is real time. there's just no like, you know how there's like a circle you can click on in Google Docs. We don't have anything like that for a Taguette. So it's kind of hard to see where the other person is. So you have to coordinate that part just with your partner in person or like via direct communication. And again, that's just for when it's hosted on a server. That would not work for single user mode. There's a lot of outreach and support opportunities for Taguette that people can always take advantage of. We have a getting started guide, lots of guides on the website. We have 2 listservs, one for announcements, like when we update versions, if there's a new initiative we're participating in, things like that. There's also a listserv where our users will talk to one another. I'll just put this in the chat. A lot of people email us at hi@taguette.org. And it's just Remy and I answering those emails when we can. So if we take a little bit long, sorry, but we're doing our best. You're always more than welcome to email us, and we're happy to help solve whatever problem you have. So I'd love to hear any questions that I didn't get to through the session, but yeah, feel free to reach out at hi@taguette.org and try it out either on your computer or on app.taguette.org. Definitely open to any feedback, requests, and yeah, want to hear what people think. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Vicky. I am a Taguette user and I learned a bunch of new things. So thank you so much. And great to put a face to the name of who developed this. Were there any unresolved questions?
I'm just scrolling up, sorry.
There's a
I think
chat
there
about intercollaboration or interoperability and recording usernames of who actually did the coding.
Yes. Yes, that should happen. My export was in single user mode, which is why it just said admin. In single user mode exports, it will just be admin. It won't be your name either. So if you want to like fix that in the export to be your name, if you want to do inter-rater reliability with somebody else's single user export, you would have to do that because otherwise they would clash. But for the server collaboration, that should be preserved. Thank you all very much. I love your kind words. They mean a lot.
Great. And it was mentioned in one of the nested chats that the slides will be archived on Zenodo and an email will be sent out to workshop registrants to make you aware of how to get to that.